Joining us now is the former head of officiating for the National Football League and was the Fox NFL rules expert in the booth for Super Bowl 57 on Sunday night. Mike Pereira. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, Rich. It's been a great week in Phoenix, and I must admit I'm ready to go home, but it's been a heck of a week.
Let's get right into it, Mike, because this was the main conversation coming out of the game on Sunday night. The holding penalty that was thrown on James Bradberry at the final drive of the game. Your two thoughts on it, please.
Well, my main thought is I just hate that that's part of the conversation.
Of course.
It's just like officiating this year can't get out of their own way. And so even if something is a legitimate call, which I think it is at the end of the game, it's still the main part of the conversation. When it happened, I saw the flag come. I knew which official threw the flag. I knew which player he was responsible for, so I ran back the line feed, which is the live shot that people see on television. And it was a similar pattern that the Chiefs had run for 2 touchdowns. And I saw the grab by the back of the jersey. And, in what they are taught, it is a clear hold. And so I said immediately to the producer, to Rich Eisen, it's a defensive hold. And then I said it to Kevin Burkhardt also. But then, of course, emotions kind of get involved, and my great friend who I absolutely adore, Greg Olson, went down the path of it being a ticky-tack and call, and not one that you want to call at that time, which is kind of foreign language to me in the first place. And so I think that, we kind of compounded a bit the controversy, and I applaud the player, who said, I held him. I grabbed the jersey. I tugged it. I was hoping they wouldn't see it. But it is just one of those where I clearly cannot say that it was an incorrect call because there was a grab and there was a restrict. Now, in my mind, I'd love to say, well, what would have happened if he wouldn't have called it? Would there have been less controversy if he wouldn't have called it? Yeah, I think that probably would have been the case. But on the other hand, it is a hold, and the young kid stepped up and made the call.
And I think we now need to tread into the territory of what Greg Olson was treading into, which I know you don't. And that's why I want to give you the floor here, Mike. I know how you feel about, well, it doesn't matter if foul's a foul. It doesn't matter if it's in the first quarter of week 1 or the last 2 minutes of Super Bowl 57. You see it, you call it, except for the fact that we as fans see so many things that are not called, and they are fouls, but they're not called, and we are assuming it's because the refs do want to stay out of the way. And that's the issue here. Is like, yes, did he restrict him? Sure. Did he tug his jersey? Yeah. But should that be called? It's Super Bowl 57.
Well, I can make a case early in the. I can make a case early in the game. I thought there was one that should have been called that wasn't, and so we always talk about the consistency. And sometimes, sometimes you, as officials, sometimes you get angles and can see things, and sometimes you're blocked out. If you're a deep official, you have one key. You have one player that you watch, and if a grab happens, it can happen in between, the players in between you and the grab, and you don't see it. I mean, there are times where you kind of go, my God, how could they not see that? And then when you break it down mechanically in review afterwards, you can see how that possibly happens. But on the other hand, I get it. We want to be consistent, but there are things that are missed all day, not all day long, but, every game there are things that are missed. But the notion of makeup calls, the notion of calling the game different in the last minute, it just doesn't fly. It doesn't fly. I mean, because, are we going to officiate this game because, we want the fans to see maybe the Eagles getting the ball back? Who knows if they would have won, if they'd have gotten the ball back with a minute and a half to go. You can't officiate the game that way. And if you do, and I would say this, if there was any single official that when I was running the officiating program that felt that way, and officiated that way, in other words, that I'm not calling anything in the last minute of the game of Super Bowl 57 or whatever, I'd fire his butt right after the game. So, it's hard enough to officiate this game, but to try to, isolate situations to where, well, I'm going to officiate this differently, than I would have maybe done it earlier. I mean, it just doesn't fly with me. And really, I kind of admire an official who sees the foul and clearly thinks it's a foul. I admire the fact that when he steps up and actually throws it, and then, doesn't even realize it at the time because everything's flashing through your head. And the last thing that you're doing is thinking about, down and distance and what is this and what is it? If I call it, you see it, you throw. And I admire the guy that steps up and does that. But again, like I say, otherwise than that, I thought the game was officiated fairly well. There wasn't a lot of fouls. There was one replay decision that I disagreed with. But overall, I thought it was good. But then, it's just the way that this year seemingly has gone, and including in the playoffs, it's just, even if you do something that at least I consider right, you still end up being the story.
Well, Mike Pereira here on the Rich Eisen Show, and we'll get to that replay that you thought should not have been overturned, and I can guess which one it is at this moment, but just putting a button on the hold call. Part of the reason why I think there is an issue that folks have is when the flag came in too. Like the initial restriction that I don't think the Fox replay that got tweeted out all over the place showed happened almost immediately, and then the flag comes arcing in as they're entering the end zone, into which the ball flew way over everybody's heads. So even you see that, and maybe the restriction couldn't have even prevented anything, because the ball wasn't going to land in Juju Smith-Schuster's hands anyway. So what do you say about that, about when the flag came in, Mike?
Well, it's another one, late flags. I mean, someday I'm going to write a story about what I think are the myths, and late flags, happen because of a process. When you actually see, and this is a process of how it plays out in this situation. When you see a potential grab, what you have to do is you have to look back to the quarterback and find the quarterback and make sure that when that grab occurred, that he still had the ball, that it wasn't in the air, because defensive holding is a foul that occurs before the pass is thrown. So it's a process that takes a little bit of time. And, we have always told officials, go slow. That's the mantra. Go slow. Don't rush, and make sure in your mind you know what you have. And so I'm not one of those that buys into the notion of, the late flag, so he changes his mind, after the play is basically done. And, and so I don't buy into that notion. I buy into the notion of, is it a foul or is it not a foul? And you are right. I mean, the ball landed, well away from where Schuster Smith ended up. But then on the other hand, you look and say, without being grabbed at the line of scrimmage, would the pass have gone to a different place? Would they maybe thrown it to him in a different place? But I could also make a case without the grab, maybe he would have been fairly close to where the ball landed. But again, it doesn't make any difference if the action occurs before the ball is thrown, and that's the key when it comes to defensive holding.
A few minutes left with Mike Pereira, lead Fox NFL rules analyst, here, fresh off of Super Bowl 57 that he was in the booth for on Sunday night. So get to the replay that you said you did not agree with in terms of the overturn. What do you got for me there, Mike?
Yeah, the Devontae Smith play, the catch that he gets 2 feet down, gets control, gets 2 feet down, goes to the ground, ball hits the ground. But the question was, did he lose possession? Not did the ball move, did he lose possession? And, Rich, and you know this, I've said it before, I feel like replay has gotten too technical. And if you have to look at something for as long as they looked at that, I mean, let's forget about just the time frame of when they actually stopped it to review it. I mean, they were looking at it right off the bat, right when the play ended, as was I. And, and I looked at it and said, close play. Did he lose? No, it moved. Did he lose possession? Maybe. But we spent 4 minutes and then concluded that we're going to reverse the call. I think that in some respects we're just losing what the original plan for replay was to correct at the initial, when we first put it in, it was called indisputable visual evidence. Then it changed recently to clear and obvious. Well, it's not clear and obvious if all of us in the booth thought that it was going to stay as a catch. And when you have to go 4 minutes to review it and then change it, then I think replay is going beyond what it should be. And I've had this conversation with the competition committee and Rich McKay, how at times we just get so stinky technical when it comes to replay. You cannot go into it with a neutral mind. You have to go into it saying the ruling on the field was this, and you have to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt, which is what the college rule book says, that the call was incomplete. And I just don't think that was the case. The others were good. I mean, the sideline catch that, the toe was still down when he got possession, that was good.
Yep.
The ruling of catch fumble and picked up and the Chiefs returned it for a touchdown, that was incomplete. He didn't get an additional step down. Those were all good, but I think they got really technical in that one play with Devontae Smith.
Yeah, and the one again that started the second half for the Eagles, where it was initially ruled catch, fumble, touchdown. That was I thought that was perfectly officiated, Mike, because I'm glad they didn't blow the whistle. I want everything played out.
Exactly.
And I know that when you play it out, you do run the risk of somebody getting hurt in a play that's going to eventually be overturned, but let it play out. You do have the backstop of replay. Go for it. They did it. They got it right. I agree with you. The Devontae Smith one, I think we're seeing a lot of if a ball rolls over, okay, when somebody's got a clear catch, by that I mean a clear clutch of the football and 2 feet down, and they're going down to the ground and now must survive the ground. We're now seeing just if the ground causes the ball to just shift in somebody's hand at all, and then it's possible that the point of the ball or any part of the oval of the ball rubs along the ground as it's shifting in their hands. That's now an incomplete pass, and I'm wondering, how do you fix that? That's the issue.
Well, the thing is, I don't think you need to fix it. I mean, the thing is, in replay, only correct the obvious mistake. And though I think that the catch thing to me has gotten much clearer when you're talking about a receiver on his feet. So like you talked about at the beginning of the second half, that was a receiver on his feet. He got control. He got 2 feet down, but then he didn't get the additional step, didn't have that element of time. So that's clear. That was easy. That was even easy for me, which is unbelievable. But on the one going to the ground, then the issue opens up about the ball moving versus the receiver losing possession. And, and so to me, you can't nitpick it. I mean, if they had ruled that pass incomplete, you stay with incomplete. I mean, there wouldn't have been enough to reverse it to a catch, in my opinion. And I say the same way. So, again, we get this notion of replay trying to, correct everything, which got everybody in trouble in the Kansas City-Cincinnati game when we had basically a do-over. And then you get this to where, to me, 7 people, which is basically what they had inside the replay booth, which was located, all the New York crew, they brought all their equipment from New York to Glendale, and they were set up in the back of the replay booth. So you had 7 people in the replay booth all looking at it, and probably some in disagreement, which is why it took 4 minutes. So if there's any disagreement at all, just stay with what is called on the field. I think that's the safest and most logical and the intended way that replay is to be used.
But I mean, that does need fixing, Mike. If just a shifting in the hand, but doesn't really lose possession, is now considered an incomplete pass, that means somebody's got to get in a room in the competition committee and make some sort of codification in the same way that fixed the catch rule for, as we mentioned, the Miles Sanders incompletion that was eventually ruled. That you need to do that. You need to say I don't know, that somehow shifting of the football does not mean it's incomplete if it didn't leave their hands,
already, Yeah, in the book already it says movement. Movement does not necessarily mean the pass is incomplete. It says that. It says that has to be loss of control, loss of possession. So that means hands clearly coming off the ball. So it's actually codified to a degree that I think can be used to address the play like, we had yesterday. So, I just think, again, God dang it, sometimes we just have to use common sense and not try to nitpick things when it comes to replay, which I just think we've had a tendency to do. I actually think that we've gotten to the point now where I don't know when the next opening is for the head of officiating, but forget your rule change proposals.
Yes.
I think it's time for you to go into the administration in New York and take over maybe the position of head of officiating.
Yeah.
I mean, you might make a lot of progress then.
You know what? You just got to get me in the competition committee room, but you knew that already. Look, I know.
There you go.
Yeah, you got to do that.
That's your first step.
You know that already.
That's your first step.
All right, and I know you got to get on your plane, but just real quick, Mike, before I let you go, the commissioner of the NFL said the game has never, officiating is quote unquote, it's never been better in the league. And a lot of people were like, get out of here with that. What did you think when you heard he said that the officiating's never been better in the NFL?
Well, I wouldn't say, well, get out of here about that, but
that's what a lot of people said. I'm just saying.
I know, but I would say it more politely. I would say I don't agree. But then again, I'm thinking if I'm the commissioner and I'm in a press conference and somebody asks me this question, I guess I'm not going to say, well, it sucks. I mean, I'm probably not going to say that. But I just think that this was the year of the playoffs where things got so messy. I mean, when I look at overall numbers, like I say, okay, there's good things there. I mean, the fact that the number of roughing the passer penalties went down from 153 to 93. Defensive pass interference went down. Offensive pass interference was down. There were some good things, but I think this replay, and I hate to go hard on replay, but replay with these expedited reviews and video assist, which generally works favorably, and I think we would say we all like it because it's moved toward the sky judge position, which I know you and I like.
Yes.
I still think you can overuse it, and I think it got overused. And there goes the alarm in the airport.
Look out.
So that must mean we're done.
Well, the security's never been better there.
Then they turned it off.
Okay, very good. All right, Mike, thanks very much. Greatly appreciate it. You be well, travel safe. Let's connect when we get into the whole rules portion of the competition committee season. That's about a few weeks from now, right? That's next up?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, Mike, you take care. You be well.
All right.
Travel safe. Great job as always.
Good. Thank you.
That's Mike Pereira, NFL rules expert of Fox Sports, former NFL VP of officiating here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.